that I got was, at first it was 12,000, then it went down to 6,000. I knew it was less than 12,000, but when they said 6,000, that was conceivable. And in fact, when they asked me that night, what are the numbers, I said it isn't time to say that yet. It's too horrific to deal with right now.
Wow.
But at that time, I might have given it a number like 4,000 or 5,000.
Surely there can't be anything more devastating than seeing people still alive, knowing that they're about to die.
Nothing worse than that.
It's
an image. It's an image that's in, particularly when you're a mayor, right? Particularly you're a mayor with a great emergency force, the best one in the country, FDNY, NYPD, emergency services. They're the best, right? They do miracles, and the fire chief, who also used to do miracles, says to me, I can't do anything about them. I got to think about the people below.
And you want to probably just break down and cry, but you have to be a leader. How do you
just say to yourself, you know what I do? I say to myself, I'll think about it later. When they came to me and told me about friends that had died, like when they told me that Father Judge was dead, or they told me that the fire chief that I mentioned to you was a good friend of mine, and when they told me he was dead, 3 hours later, first thing normally, if they had come into my office and they said that Father Judge was dead, I'd have taken a few minutes, probably gone downstairs into my private office, probably would have cried. But I can't do it. Just have to say so. I can't do it.
Did you have you cried since?
Sure. Privately, yeah.
Do you still dream about it?
The only time I ever broke down then, that day, I was doing a press conference, the second one of the day, and Marsha Kramer of CBS asked me if I knew about the wife of the Justice Department official who died in the plane going into the Pentagon, who was either calling back or texting back that they were cutting the throats of the people on the plane. And I said, no, I haven't heard that, Marsha. And she said, oh, it was Ted Olson's wife. And then that really hit me. Ted is one of my best friends. His wife, and he had just been in my office about a week earlier. She had just she's just written a book critical of Hillary Clinton. And she came to see me because she was doing a promotion for the book. And she'd just been there like 5 days or 10 days earlier. And I expected, from the first moment I got there, I expected I was going to hear about a lot of firefighters, friends of mine that were in the building. But this was so far out there. You know, this was like, how would Mrs. Olson be involved in something like this? My friend from Washington. So I almost broke down crying. I got behind Governor Pataki, who, thank God, is almost as tall as you.
Wow, look how tall he is.
Almost as tall as you, but a little wider, I got behind him, and I probably had a couple of tears in my eyes, and I sort of just got rid of them, and then I came back, and I was able to... And then I called Ted on the phone, and we had a conversation for about 15 minutes. But that was the one that... I wasn't ready for that. But I got back on track right away. The other thing was, when I'd go to the funerals, it was always the point at which I would get up to give the eulogy and look at the children. You know, I'd been to so many funerals, you sort of develop a way to do it. But then it would always get me when I see the little children, maybe 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, and all of a sudden these kids are going to grow up mostly without a father, in some cases without a mother, all because these maniacs decided to kill a bunch of people for reasons that only they can figure out in their insane minds.
So what do you tell children like that?
The thing with firefighters, police officers, soldiers, military people, you can tell them what a hero their father was. You can tell them what a fine man he was, what a hero he was. In this particular case, how many lives he probably saved.
Right.
How, if it wasn't for them, it might have been 12,000, it might have been 6,000. But they did such a good evacuation and kept people calm that they saved thousands and thousands of lives. And they gave up their own life to do it. And that's hard to accept. It's a very, very noble, wonderful thing to do. And it means that somewhere inside you have that same courage.
So now we go to Pittsburgh, where there were ordinary people, but you saw people like Dr. Jerry Rabinowitz, who had already gotten out of the building, but he ran back in because he was a doctor, and he went in to help tend the wounded, and he got shot.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful thing? It's like Steven Siller. We have a run here the last Sunday every October. We have a run there for Steven Siller, who was home as a firefighter. He was off duty. He heard about the fire. He went to his fire station. His company was already out. He got his bunker gear. He ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. He ran into the fire and saved people and died. So there are always, whenever these terrible things happen, there are always about the worst of the human spirit, right? The man who did this is displaying one of the worst things you can think of in the human spirit, right? This kind of group hatred, this kind of sick hatred. In this case, a couple of 1,000-year-old hatred. And then he goes ahead and he thinks he can take people's lives as if he's God. And so that's a horrible person. But then you see a man like this doing something wonderful. So horrible things often bring out the most wonderful things about human beings.
We used to be afraid of an outsider coming into our country, but today we're seeing Americans turning on Americans. How do we deal with that? And instead of one big attack like 9/11, we have so many small attacks that are taking place all over the country.
Well, the smaller attacks are harder to deal with because they don't require a lot of planning. They don't require a lot of coordination. How do you catch something? Somebody makes a mistake, right? They're communicating with too many people. They're buying too many explosives. They're buying too many arms. When they do like a targeted single attack, it's much harder to pick up. But, this is a terrible thing that happened. But if we go back over our history, even the history of the lives that we've lived, America's had as much violence in the past.
Just the media hasn't been.
For example, the years in which President Kennedy was assassinated, and then Martin Luther King, and the attempt on George Wallace, and the killing, and then the killing of Robert Kennedy. Then that was followed by 2 attempts to kill President Ford.
Reagan was shot.
Carter also. There was
Reagan. I have a picture of Ronald Reagan. Having after breakfast, shaking hands with him the morning of the day that he got shot.
You'll send me that picture?
I can send you a picture, yeah. I'll send you take a picture of my picture. My mother used to have it, and when she died, she left it to me.
Call me, I'll take a picture of the picture. We won't send you the original picture.
No problem, you can just scan it.
Yeah. But let's also, I don't want to
I'm going to ask...
Yeah, I've got to run now.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the last question, and I'll try to follow up with you. Mark VPN. So, in the aftermath of 9/11, you saw President Bush and Chuck Schumer came together. They crossed party lines to work together.
It was wonderful.
We saw, by Hurricane Sandy, President Obama and Governor Christie coming together. But now we see in Pittsburgh, President Trump wants to do the right thing, and the local politicians are telling him not to.
Well,
what's changed?
Well, I think it's hard to escape the fact that things have gotten more bitter. But it's also the timing of it, right? Although Christie and Obama was right before the election in 2012. I was going to say it's so darn close to the election that some people can't stop being political.
Right.
Maybe God forbid, if it happened, 5 weeks from now, the election's over, and nobody's thinking about an election for 2 years. Maybe, just maybe, there'd be more unity. I don't know. September 11, 2001 was not a particularly political period of time. Bush had been elected. He was in office for 8 or 9 months. The next election was a year and a half away. On the other hand, there's no doubt that we've gotten more angry at each other. We say horrible things. And the anger that's been stoked against President Trump, and I know they don't want to recognize it, but it's way beyond anything else that I've ever seen. Right. And I work for Ronald Reagan. I'm a good friend of 43. They had a lot of problems. 43, we forget, but they used to say terrible things about him. Terrible things. And it is hard for the Democratic media to agree to this, but they do treat us differently. Republicans are attacked a lot more than Democrats.
So what about the attack that President Trump's rhetoric is what led to this particular attack and has led to...